Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Filed. I'm your host, Anna, and today I've brought back Mama Holly for another episode.
Hey, everybody.
It feels really good to be back, especially because we enjoyed getting to do the last episode together.
Absolutely. I loved being here and doing this with you. I was really nervous at first, and it's really weird hearing your own voice recorded, but I'm excited to get to do it again.
Yeah, it was fun, and I guess I can kind of explain, what happened on our break. So, basically, the software we're using just decided not to export, the final cut of the episode. It would export the part where we were actually talking, but once we edited it and everything and added all that in, it wouldn't export, the final version. But Wish, thankfully, went software hunting and got us some new software.
Yay, Wish!
But the week after the episode was supposed to be uploaded, we had also planned a break because I had a million things going on in law school, quizzes and tests and interviewing and all sorts of stuff. But thankfully we figured it out and now we're back in action. Also, I felt like last week's episode was so much smoother having you here while it was recording.
Yeah, I feel like it was more natural too.
Yeah, and that was the whole point of kind of bringing you on, was just I felt like all the episodes sounded so scripted, and I wanted to kind of move away from that and just kind of sound like I was just telling a story, because a lot of my friends kind of say that I'm good at storytelling, but I feel like our past couple episodes have been more reading a story instead of telling a story. So this way it just kind of feels like I'm gossiping with my mom, which is way better. Also, I feel like it helps kind of clarify some of the content better, because whenever you don't have someone asking questions, it's hard to convey exactly what you're meaning. Anyway, if this is your first time listening, or if you've been around for a while, thank you so much for being here. We have truly appreciated you guys. Also, thank you for being patient while we sorted through all those issues. And on our break, I truly love doing this, but it's very hard to navigate whenever issues are going to come up, because just no one teaches you how to do this. So thank you for sticking with us. As always, I'm going to shamelessly plug our show. If you want to keep up with everything happening at Filed, you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at The Filed Podcast. On both pages, there is a link to listen to our show. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube. If you want to continue to support our show, go leave us a review wherever you listen, repost and share our content, or tell a friend. Seriously, out of all the successful shows that I have listened to or come across, I know this is how they get bigger, so please help us out. Speaking of, guess what other countries or areas we have listeners, outside of the U.S.?
Czechoslovakia.
No. No, we have listeners in the UK and in France.
Oh, wow.
I know. So if you're listening from UK or France, thank you so much. Also, we'd love to hear from you because, I don't know, that's just so cool.
Okay, let's jump into this week's story.
So, this past week, everyone celebrated a very big holiday.
Valentine's Day?
Yes. Please tell our listeners what Dad got you for Valentine's Day.
He got me some roses and a bag of my favorite chips, which are Frito honey barbecue twists.
Those are so good. I feel like they're so, I rarely see them and rarely eat them, but I feel like they're really good.
They are good. They're my fave.
Well, some couples or people have had much darker Valentine's Day experiences, and I wanted to tell you one of those today. So let's dive in. This is the story of Jesse McBane and Patricia Mann. Welcome to the Filed Podcast. Back way up and give a little history lesson on Valentine's Day, because I didn't know where it came from. I mean, I knew about kind of the basis, but not this much. So for many, Valentine's Day is a day to celebrate love with roses or chocolates. In my family, my mom still gets me something for Valentine's Day. This year we went to go see Mean Girls the musical, which was so fun. Anyway, others see it as a day for florists and candy companies to make a little extra.
And honey barbecue twists.
And honey barbecue twists. I guess that'd be Frito. Either way, this holiday had to start somewhere. So, where did it start? Well, that is kind of a hard question to answer because there's 3 different legends associated with Valentine's Day. All 3 are based on saints within the Catholic Church named Saint Valentine, which is basically all I knew was that it's based off Saint Valentine. But that's it. The first saint was during the reign of Emperor Claudius II, so around 260 to 270 AD. Claudius made a decree that young single men were not allowed to be married. In his opinion, young men should only be used as soldiers. In response, Saint Valentine went behind the emperor's back and performed marriage ceremonies for young couples wishing to be married regardless of the law. So that's like the first. I don't know. That's kind of. I think that's a good story.
Yeah. Different, but okay. Not what I was expecting.
Me either. So when Claudius found out, Saint Valentine was put to death. The second Valentine was rumored to be a bishop the same time as Claudius II. He was also killed, but I didn't see any connections to like our modern day celebrations. It was just like he existed as a bishop. The third, and probably my favorite, was based on a saint who helped Christians escape the imprisonment of the Romans. Christians were treated horribly by the Romans, especially in jail, so Saint Valentine helped several of them escape. He was caught and then obviously placed in prison. He would later be put to death, but while there, he fell in love with the daughter of one of the jailers and wrote her letters signed from your Valentine.
Aww.
So then he was put to death, sadly. So yeah, that's basically where our modern holiday comes from. So I did some calculations. I don't know if they're completely correct, but we're going to jump about 1700 years to 1971 in North Carolina. 19-year-old Jesse McBane and 20-year-old Patricia Mann were deeply in love with each other. They had been dating since high school. In fact, some sources stated that the couple was engaged or planning to become engaged so they could get married. Jesse was well-liked, athletic, and intelligent. And during this time, so it was obviously February of 1971, and Jesse was a freshman at the North Carolina State University. Patricia was also adored, and she too was in school. She had dreams of becoming a nurse and was attending Watts Hospital in Durham, North Carolina. Every year, Watts Hospital hosted a Valentine's Day dance for the students to attend. Many of you don't know this, but Mom, you're a nurse, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys have a dance during your school?
No, not at all. Nothing fun during nursing school.
I think that we have a quote-unquote ball in law school in the spring, but I'm not 100% sure on that. In the fall, we have a Halloween party, but it's not the same. Like, you don't get dressed up. I mean, we dress in costumes, so we don't, like, wear, like, fancy dresses and coat and tie kind of thing. Anyway, Patricia was excited to be taking her high school sweetheart to the Valentine's Day dance. On February 12th, 1971, Jesse had worked out a deal with his brother to take their shared vehicle from Chatham County to Durham County to go to the dance. The couple arrived at the dance and had a romantic evening celebrating the holiday. As the night came to a close, the couple left the dance for some alone time. This was at around 11:30 p.m. Patricia even signed out of her college dorm in order to spend more time with Jesse, which I personally hated reading that because I went to a college that required us to sign out and have a curfew, which they said their curfew was like crazy. It was like 10 p.m. or maybe like 12 a.m. I don't remember. I remember ours was 12 a.m. during the week, 1 a.m. on the weekends. So I felt for her having to sign out. Which, like, a lot of people are baffled when I say that I had those rules in college. Was this, like, normal for colleges to have curfews? I know this is, like, before you were even born, but, like, did anyone you know
No.
have a curfew?
But I can say as a mom, I wasn't upset with the curfew.
I'm sure you weren't. Either way, the couple set out for a cul-de-sac in a developing neighborhood.
Oh.
Which, there was an unwritten rule that if you saw a car in a cul-de-sac like this, you should go ahead and move on so that both you and the other car have more privacy. So they were completely alone. The night turned into morning, and morning turned into daylight, and by Saturday morning, several nursing students noticed that Patricia had not returned back to the dorm, which was highly out of character for her. Hours passed without a sign of the couple, and they knew that both of them, meaning Jesse and Patricia, were too responsible to just not show up, or to not tell anybody where they were. So Patricia's friends began calling the hospital to see if any accidents had occurred, but there was no luck. So they go to the police and file a missing persons report. Of course, the police are like, they're grown, they're dating, they're in love, maybe they just ran away for the weekend. So the friends started looking for the couple themselves. And finally, sitting in an empty cul-de-sac was Jesse's car. But as they approached the vehicle, they discovered it was completely empty. There seemed to be no struggle or anything out of the ordinary. In fact, the car had been completely wiped of any fingerprints. So at this point, red flags are going off. It was just a regular car, but the owner was nowhere to be found. The police at this point feel like they need to get involved, and the case develops to a much larger scale. Still, rumors fly around about the couple running away to be eloped, or a slew of all other theories. I think there was one where they thought that Patricia was pregnant and basically was ashamed, but no one knew what was going on. It wasn't until February 25th, 1971, so about 2 weeks later, that anyone would ever know what happened to them. A surveyor was working in a secluded area deep in the woods several miles away from the abandoned car. The area was only accessible by a single dirt road. While he was working, the man saw something sticking out of a pile of leaves. As he got closer, he determined that the thing sticking out of the leaves was a human leg. The surveyor immediately called the police, and after arriving, the bodies were determined to belong to Jesse McBane and Patricia Mann.
I knew it.
An autopsy was conducted and revealed that both Jesse and Patricia were fully clothed, with ropes tied tightly around their necks and wrists, and then the pair was attached together with another rope. Further examination determined that these ropes were used to torture the victims until their death. The ropes had been tied up in a tree, and the couple would have been pulled up by their necks, which obviously would have choked them, and then they would get close to passing away and then would be let down. The investigators found that the toes of the victims' shoes were muddy, and they had left impressions in the mud from kicking their feet as they were lifted off the ground. Eventually, the two would die from the strangulation. Following their death, each of the bodies were stabbed repeatedly in the chest. Both Jesse and Patricia suffered the same injuries, except Patricia had an additional tear in her liver, possibly from being punched or kicked in the abdomen.
That's terrible. I think that's why there's always a pause when you tell me how they were murdered, and I don't really know what to say, is because I'm trying to process that actually happening to somebody. And
like, these are real people, and whoever did this was a real person that just got away with it.
Well, not only that, but I just keep thinking about what they're thinking and the terror they're in the moment. And that's what really bothers me.
Yeah, I know when we talked about the Sharice Iverson case, you kind of talked about, like, her last moments. So I think about them being so young and in love. Like, that's a little bit younger than me. Like, she was only 2 years younger than me. Not that if they're older, it makes it any less gruesome. But that's hard to think of. Like, that's hard to process. The police were shocked, and this missing persons case was a full-blown homicide investigation. Who would want to murder this happy couple? Who is capable of conducting such horrific actions against other human beings? Investigators still don't know.
You did not sit here and do an unsolved case.
I did, I know. And I said so many times when I was talking about doing a podcast that I wouldn't do an unsolved case. Like, I was like, I won't do that. They drive me nuts. But this case stuck with me for so long. I heard it on a podcast. I want to say Murder with My Husband, but I could be wrong. Which, if you haven't heard their podcast, 10 out of 10, go listen to them. But I want to say they did this case, or maybe it was Crime Junkies, and ever since I heard it, like, it just really stuck out to me. This couple just goes missing in the middle of the night after a Valentine's Day dance, and then is brutally murdered. Brutally murdered. And they have no clue who did it. I don't know, it was just one of those stories, like the Sharice Iverson case. Like, it just really stuck out to me, and I don't know, I was like, I have to talk about it. So, several have theories about who they think it was, as big cases do. Kind of like the Idaho murders.
The Idaho murders?
Yeah, so do you remember back, I want to say a couple years ago, maybe it's not been that long, where there was a group of university students in Idaho where a couple of them had been murdered in the middle of the night.
They all lived together?
Yes.
Oh, yes, I do remember that.
So during that case, a lot of people had, because it blew up on like TikTok and the media, and so many people were like interested in it, they had a lot of theories pop up that impeded the investigation. Like, they were receiving thousands and thousands of calls. Luckily, this case was not current, so there wasn't TikTok and Instagram. But several believe that a doctor at Patricia's school was responsible for the crime, with some sort of love interest as the motive. Several years after the crime had occurred, the doctor was asked for a DNA sample, but his lawyer called the investigators back and refused to allow him to give one, so they're still investigating him.
There wasn't DNA evidence in 1971.
Right.
They didn't have that.
Right.
So at what point did they ask this doctor for his DNA?
I don't know the exact timeline of when they asked, but clearly it was kind of after DNA had advanced.
But had they collected anything from...
Yes, so I know in a lot of investigations, I mean, I don't have a confirmed source that said they did, but in a lot of investigations that happened before DNA was, especially like CODIS, which tracks every, I want to say felon that commits a crime, their DNA is submitted into a database that investigators can pull from when they need to. So I know that, like, when a case is not solved, the evidence doesn't get discarded. So a lot of investigators prior to the advancement of DNA would keep evidence like body fluid or fingernail scrapings or whatever they could, as long as they could. And that's how a lot of cases have been solved, is they will get a suspect and then they have these DNA samples from forever ago, and then they will collect new DNA from the suspect, and they will solve cases that way. I'm pretty sure that's how that goes about. There are several factors for why this case isn't solved, but I think the main one is that because of the location where the bodies were found. So I told you they were kind of found out in a very secluded area.
Yeah.
Basically, there was a fight over which jurisdiction the case belonged in. So several jurisdictions began investigating this case separately. So I think from the way it sounded, some investigations impeded others.
Oh, okay.
So one source said the Orange County PD, the Durham County Sheriff's Office, the Durham PD, the State Department of Investigations, the FBI, and the North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles were all investigating this crime.
Why would the DMV be investigating a murder case?
Because it had to do with it started out with that missing vehicle. They couldn't find the vehicle, couldn't find the couple. So I guess that was their tie-in. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't know the DMV even did that. But maybe they weren't investigating separately, but maybe they were helping investigate, if that would make sense. Like they were providing license plate information, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Or maybe even like there was some rumored suspects that had maybe some driving records. I'm not exactly sure. But there has been occasional hope here and there, but nothing would result in an arrest. For example, the families received a phone call from someone confessing to the murders, but after the call was traced, it was determined to either be a prank call or the person on the other end was just not there when they arrived. Which, how sick and twisted are you if it is a prank call? How sick and twisted is it to call someone's family after they were, like, brutally murdered? And, like, clearly this would be in the news. Even if it wasn't in the news, this seems like a smaller community, so word's going to travel fast. Like, everyone knows what happened. And then you're going to take that and make a joke out of it. I don't know. Like, that really bothered me.
That's sad.
It is sad. And what's harder, I think, to even accept is whoever did this in 53 years is probably aged. Like, they're either dead or they're
70s or 80s.
Or 90s, like, depending on how old they were. Like, so I feel like the window of solving this case is slowly closing. But it can't be somebody random, I feel like. It's just not. Like, it feels very personal. They were stabbed in the chest, which I know a lot of, like, if it's face or chest, like, they know the person. It's a very personal attack. They also knew exactly where to take them, where no one would hear. Because, like, the area is very secluded. So, and their only way to get there is one dirt road. So they would have had to know where the dirt road was. How, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, if you live around there, if you're from there, you know all those things.
That's what I'm saying. It has to be somebody within the community that knows. And then I think it's just very personal the way it was done. So it has to be someone that knows, or at least knows her. But I mean, they were killed the exact same way. And also, it's definitely planned.
Why do you say that?
Because they had the ropes.
Oh.
They cleaned the fingerprints off the car. They knew where they'd be. Because, I mean, you don't necessarily, I don't know, like, you don't know my daily activities if you're not that close to me. But you may know, like, oh, I have this event coming up.
But you don't know that I'm parking in a cul-de-sac making out with my boyfriend.
Well, maybe it was someone that's why I think a lot of people point to the doctor at the hospital. Because maybe he was there. Or maybe he knew where to watch. Maybe, like, knew that it was coming up, was sitting in the parking lot. I don't know. But yeah, so this case has always kind of stuck out to me. And I just feel like it's sad. But also just, like, there's no answers. Usually, like, they have, like, a really solid lead. Or we kind of know this person did it. But we don't have enough evidence to convict them. So we're waiting to arrest them until more evidence. Like, there's usually something. But this case, like, there's truly no prime suspect.
I need closure.
I think a lot of people need closure on this case. Sadly, in the 53 years following this crime, there has not been an arrest nor a solid crack in the case. Because of technology and the advancement of DNA, investigators are hopeful, but no one really knows who murdered Jesse McBane and Patricia Mann. If you are interested in this story, the links for the sources are down in the show notes, so you can check them out for more information. Also, we want to hear your thoughts on this case, so go over onto our social media pages or on our episode and leave a comment or shoot us a message. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and we hope that you tune in for the next Filed Friday. Also, I think next week's episode is a listener's pick, so I'm excited about that. Stay safe and stay alert. Bye!
Bye!